Hi everybody, my name is Jessica Galloway and I'm going to be presenting my PowerPoint, which is gender identity and services to transgender people. Today I will be going over the following key points. It's my introduction, trans and gender diverse identities, quantitative data, qualitative data, intervention strategies, case scenario, recommendations, and my summary. Since 1980, gender identity disorder, or GID, has been stigmatized the transgender people as mentally ill and sexually deviant. For 33 years, GID remained in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders, otherwise known as the DSM. Several observers throughout history have made the point that GID diagnosis perpetuates defamatory stereotypes of transgender and gender nonconforming people, contributing to the support for conversion therapies that have been used to inflict pain and trauma on transgender individuals. Only recently, in response to pressure from transgender advocacy groups and the World Professional Association of Transgender Health, did the DSM-5 eliminate the GID diagnosis and replace it with the diagnosis of gender dysphoria in the new section that separates it from a sexual disorder. Okay. Some social issues the transgender community faces and some examples of each are as follows. Medical prejudice. Most insurance companies will not pay for gender-affirming surgery due to them deeming it cosmetic and not a medical necessity. Isolation. A loss of family and friends due to lifestyle. Limited resources for social engagements. Stigma. All cultures have expectations regarding the interests and behaviors of those who are assigned male or female. Those who grow up with a gender identity or gender expression that does not match the sex that they were assigned at birth are stigmatized for being different, and they may be treated with disrespect, harassment, or physically harmed by others. As an example, in the movie Boys Don't Cry, based on the real-life story of Brandon Teena, he was killed for being transgender. Discrimination. Using public restrooms. I actually watched a TED Talk which was called How to Talk and Listen to Transgender People by Jackson Bird. Jackson informed the audience that in a recent political flashpoint used in a debate in regards to transgender individuals and the use of public restrooms showed it held no value. Jackson states, quote, "Here's a fun fact. More U.S. congressmen have been convicted of assaulting someone in a public restroom than trans people have," end quote. He also talks about that in a 2015 national survey that was completed showed that 8% of the trans community had UTIs in the last year due to avoiding using the restroom altogether. Transphobia. Individuals purposefully not using the gender pronoun that corresponds to trans persons' gender identity as they have requested. For example, refusing to switch the she to he when a person articulated that they identify as a boy or a man. Using dehumanizing pronouns such as it to refer to a trans person. And refusing to use the trans person's chosen name and insisting on referring to them with their birth name. The acculturation issues transgender individuals face is that they are born with an anatomy that they do not identify with. Some definitions to remember when talking about someone's gender identity are as follows. Assigned sex, which is determined at birth when the baby's genitals are examined and the sex is declared male or female. Gender identity is a person's inner sense of being female or male or neither, or a blend of the two. Gender expression encompasses how we present our gender to the world on a spectrum of feminine to masculine, as these qualities are understood within our nation or culture. So things such as clothes, mannerisms, grooming, as well as for children, their preferred toys, playmates, and activities are all different ways that we express our gender. Transgender is an umbrella term which refers to people whose gender identity or gender expression does not conform to societal's expectations based on their assigned sex. And affirmed gender identity is the gender identity a transgender person discloses. It is the one that feels right for them, even though it differs from the sex that they were assigned at birth. With all of these societal issues that the transgender population experience daily, the rates of mental health or mental illness has increased exponentially. According to the Williams Institute, the most current statistical data shows that 4.5% of the U.S. population identifies as LGBT. The total transgender community is 1,397,150, and of those individuals, 78,600 live in New York State. The following information was gathered from a 2010 census of adults aged 18 and older that shows that 50% of all transgender individuals experience depression and anxiety disorders. And of that 50%, 41% of the trans men and women are estimated to have attempted suicide in their life. That is at a rate that is nearly 9 times as high as the rate of cisgender Americans. Adults who are LGBT who have experienced discrimination have average stress levels of 6.4 compared to 6.0 for LGBT adults overall. In addition to the fact that among adults who are non-LGBT, their stress levels are 5.5 for those individuals who have experienced discrimination and 5.0 for non-LGBT adults overall. In 2015, a study published by the Milbank Quarterly found that out of 452 transgender people residing in Massachusetts, 65% reported being on the receiving end of discrimination in the context of public accommodation. So those examples of that are from hospitals and healthcare centers to public transportation and even shopping centers. 24% of the reported discrimination in a healthcare setting, which researchers found to be linked to 81% increased risk of adverse emotional and physical symptoms, which also caused them to a threefold increased risk of postponing needed care, such as like when they were sick or injured, and of preventative or routine health care, so they would just avoid it at all. So one of my qualitative interview with a social worker, her name is Heather, and she works in the community, and she has for many years. She states that until there is a shift in societal attitudes and norms, transgender individuals could benefit from public health interventions such as mind and body programs, improve their coping skills to enhance their resiliency, interventions that provide a safe space while improving those skills, increased social inclusion, and policy change, such as level interventions that aim to decrease stigma, discrimination, and transphobia. Heather states that one of her biggest struggles is her inability to get one of her transgender clients into an inpatient treatment due to their assigned gender. There's not enough adequate accommodations in the hospital or treatment care center settings for transgender individuals, and recently she has discovered that even individuals that identify as non-binary or refer to themselves as they, them, instead of he or she, they also have been turned away due to not knowing which floor to place them on. So we really need to work on accommodations for these individuals going forward so they can get to the treatment that they are in need of. My next slide is the qualitative continued. I did an interview with a social worker from the Q Center. The Q Center is through ACR Health. It is a safe place for LGBTQ and their allies ages 5 to 28 to gather, share, hang out, and have fun and learn. So it offers social supports for youth ages 5 to 28, care management services for ages 13 to 29. They do HIV prevention program. They have a rapid rehousing program that partners with the rescue mission to assist in individuals who are homeless. They do cultural competency training for school staff, medical providers, social agencies, or anyone else who expresses interest and requests trainings. The best way to get services right now through them is by email, which is at the bottom of the slide. And I have also provided the phone number. This is the best way right now because they are currently updating their referral process. The social worker states that the majority of the clients that present to the Q Center is due to lack of acceptance at home or school. They typically present with issues with isolation, bullying, and risk of homelessness. Right now, it's also been a struggle because of COVID. Everything has been virtual at this time. It has made things difficult for them in that not all of the clients have access to the resources for virtual spaces. They don't have internet or computers or smartphones and things like that. So being that support is a struggle for them at this time. Again, the biggest reason someone may reach out to them is for hormone replacement therapy or counseling, which unfortunately they do not offer, but they do assist them in finding whatever resources they need in order to obtain those resources that they are in need of. Another reason, again, that they reach out is they need a social support system or a safe place to be themselves, so that's what the Q Center provides to them. So it seems like a really good program. Intervention strategies. So following the National Association of Social Works, otherwise known as NASW Code of Ethics and Mission Statement, the mission statement of the social work profession is rooted in a set of core values. These core values, embraced by social workers throughout the profession history, are the foundation of a social work's unique purpose and perspectives. So the core values are service, social justice, dignity and worth of the person, importance of human relationships, integrity, and competence. Another intervention is educating yourself and others, recognizing the misinformation, stereotypes, and myths regarding the transgender population. Do not participate in derogatory discussions or jokes that perpetuates the stereotypes. Speak up in favor of those who are being oppressed, stereotyped, or misunderstood. Understanding your own value system. Talking with someone that you trust if you have conflicting values that prevent you from working against the discrimination. Research has shown that when a clinician applies inclusive, non-pathologizing, and affirming care for transgender individuals, there no longer has to be a disconnect between the clinician and the transgender client. Making social work agencies more welcoming to the transgender communities. So this can be done by posting inclusive symbols and literature geared towards the transgender populations. For example, a rainbow flag symbol to show friendliness towards LGBTQ clients. Make accommodations for transgender populations, such as a unisex bathroom for transgender clients. In-service training for all staff on issues, obstacles, strengths, and service for transgender populations. Join groups that work for social justice, such as National Association of Social Workers, formerly Lobbies for Inclusion and Social Justice, Human Rights Campaigns, a national advocacy organization. Amnesty International works for social justice both nationally and internationally, and work towards social justice. inform legislators about the needs of transgender community, work for marriage equality and equal protections in employment and housing, and vote for candidates who support social justice and equal rights. Case scenario application. Client is an autistic transgender woman, male to female, age 38. Client presented to the clinic due to distress caused by the inability to find a medical provider that would perform her gender affirmation surgery that was within her insurance network. Client presents with anxiety, depression, and autism. She has low income and limited family supports. So the recommendations for this client would be mental health counseling weekly to assist with her anxiety and depression, care coordination with the Office of Persons with Developmental Disabilities, otherwise known as OPWDD, case management, advocating on her behalf to the insurance company, and also to find a medical facility and surgeon to perform her surgery. Also assist her in the process to legally change her name to reflect her chosen name on all legal documents such as her social security card, birth certificate, driver's license, and insurance cards. Encourage her to participate with social support such as support groups and peer services. Due to her anxiety and her autism, transportation was an issue for her. Also low income, she did not have her own means of transportation. Originally for her first surgery, our company, our facility was her transportation and also her support during her surgery. But then once COVID hit, we were unable to leave the county to transport her. This became a problem because she had packing and stitching and things that needed to be removed. And we were unable to find her transportation to get to that surgeon to take care of that issue. I called every single OBGYN, plastic surgeon, urgent care, and emergency room, and no one would assist in removing her packing or stitching. The closest thing that I got to any kind of help was the emergency room offered to assist her, but they would only treat her once an infection happened, but not before. Obviously, that's not ideal, so that was not something that I was willing to accept as an answer. So what I had to do was I had to contact MAS, which is Medical Answering Services. They transport individuals to and from medical appointments. And those individuals, the only requirement is that they need to have Medicaid, which she had. So I had to call the director of MAS and explain the situation and get authorization and approval to have them authorize transportation from her home all the way to Buffalo, which was about 3 hours away. So sometimes I see that as a social worker, you need to really think outside the box and figure out different ways of doing things or getting the services that your clients need. Sometimes there's not a cut and dry situation. Everybody is different and their needs need to be met differently. So I was able to explain to the director her situation, and I was able to get the transportation approved. So she was able to get a ride to and from all of her post-op appointments, and then she actually needed an additional surgery to revise things, and she was able to get transportation to that as well. So that was hard, but I'm glad it worked out. Also, another intervention that I have had to do with her is we have bi-weekly phone calls just to call and check in. She needs that extra support due to her sensory issues and the sensitivities she was feeling during her healing process. With her also being low income, we have been working on different resources for her having low income, such as SNAP benefits to help with food. And also, we have been working on a budget routine in order to assist her in getting her bills paid for on the little bit of income that she does bring in each month. The most prevalent thing that I have learned throughout completing this project is how much the transgender community suffers in not only their daily living within themselves, but also how society as a whole makes it so much harder for this population. Simple things that we take for granted, who we are, who we love, how we dress, the bathrooms we can use, where we can shop or seek out medical care. Something as simple as meeting a new person and introducing yourself to them. Or sadly, in the case of Brandon Tina, who was killed for living as his true self. There are so many barriers in place for these individuals. Society's mindset needs to be changed as a whole in order to improve their quality of life. But until that happens, the best thing that we can do as social workers is to educate society, support the transgender community, and be competent in the work that we do daily. Jack Bird states in his TED Talks, "Maybe someday when I say hi, I'm Jack and I'm transgender, maybe the only response that I'll get is, hi, nice to meet you." As a social worker and as a person, I want that for Jack and the transgender community. So I will do my part and continue my education and educate those around me. Even if someday only one mind is changed, then I did my job. That is the type of social worker I will be. Thank you. This is my works cited page.